All right, this is it. The official return of Obsessed with Death. I am so excited to bring this podcast back. Um, I'm still working out details. I'm hoping for every other Monday as a release for an episode. But, I'm doing all this myself. I'm trying to book people. Obviously, I want the content to be interesting. There's stuff I got to figure out, but we're moving in the right direction to at least consistent episodes, and I'm so excited to do it. Today's episode is with a funeral professional and body retriever. We discuss working at a funeral. We discuss her 2 years of retrieving dead bodies from homes, from hotel, for whatever it's. We discuss all kinds of fun death-related topics. We even discuss something music-related that I had never really thought about when it comes to death. So thank you, of course, to Ashley for coming on the podcast and letting me ask a bunch of questions. And I had a ton of fun. I think you guys are really going to dig this episode. There's just so much that you don't think about when it comes to retrieving a dead body or the involvement of the family, or even just getting this body out of wherever they are. Great episode. I'm so excited we're back. Thank you guys for listening. Make sure you spread the word. Please subscribe, leave a review, 5 stars if you enjoyed the episode, and tell your friends. Post it on Instagram, Twitter, whatever it is. Just please. The only way this is going to grow, and I'm going to be able to continue to do this, is if you spread the word. So thank you again to Ashley for being a part of this episode. Thank you guys for listening, and enjoy the return of Obsessed with Death. I started this podcast because I've realized that I legitimately have this obsession with death. Now, I think everybody kind of, you might not necessarily think about it every day, but it's one of those things that obviously, it's the one thing we all have in common. It's the one thing I think, you know, it's what it's like fear of speaking in front of an audience and then death are like the top 2 fears, I think, for people. So I've always kind of had this obsession with it. I probably think about it more than the average person, maybe to an unhealthy amount. And I felt like maybe I should try and find some sort of creative, healthy outlet to maybe discuss or at least talk about all these different feelings I have. So I started this podcast in hopes that this will just get all of these like death feelings and thoughts and whatever it is that I have out of me. So I'm having all these different people on, and I'm hoping that I get something out. I don't know what I'm hoping I get something out of it. I don't know what that is. Maybe some sort of feeling, not necessarily of like losing the feeling of, or what's the word? Words are tough. I basically
Maybe like
just
breaking taboo, kind
sure.
of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to be able to maybe it's just be more comfortable with it. It makes me extremely uncomfortable. I specifically remember the first time I sort of realized that I was going to die. Like that feeling, that moment, it's like melted in my brain. And I still think about it sometimes. And I remember that gut feeling that I had where I was like, oh man, it might just be, that might just be it. Like you might just lights out, it's over forever. And that freaked me out. And it's kind of just kind of gone from there. So again, you work in the funeral industry. Is that a fair way to put it?
Yeah. Yep.
And
I do.
and you also mentioned to me earlier that you spent some time picking up bodies from homes and kind of
Yes.
wherever, I guess?
Yeah. So right now, I kind of do more front of house, if you will. So I'm with the family. I'm meeting with the family once someone has passed, coordinating, bringing them into the care of the funeral home when they've passed, and then making all of those arrangements for burial or cremation, and then working the services.
Gotcha.
To whereas prior, I started out by, yes, picking up bodies, which is called removals. And some places have contracts with like the medical examiner, so you'd pick up like straight from a crime scene or like a scene in where someone has taken their life. I didn't do that, but I would pick up from the medical examiner or from residences or nursing homes, group homes, pretty much anywhere else that someone would pass away.
Gotcha. Okay. And I mean, that's incredible. And I want to really get into all of that. But if we could just back up a little before we get there.
Sure.
Like I was saying, I remember having this like distinct feeling of like when death really like clicked. Do you remember like any point like sort of growing up or when like that feeling really clicked for you?
Honestly, I feel so weird and I feel like people ask me this. I don't know that I've ever like had that like anxiety of death, and I even really haven't had too much loss in my own life. I felt drawn to it more as like as a little kid, I was just really into like all the weird stuff. Like I remember for the Scholastic Book Fair, like my mom was like, "Really, Ashley?" Because I wanted to buy like a little ghost hunting handbook. Yeah, I really loved like Jaws and like scary movies for like
Yeah.
from like a young age. And so I was drawn more, I think, to that kind of stuff. And it was never my dream to do what I'm doing now, but it just kind of turned into like the perfect fit like later in life for me. But I don't know that I've ever actually had a moment of like that clicking for me. I think I don't know if it's my parents just did like they weren't afraid to speak about those things, and so it just always felt natural.
So you think that maybe I mean, obviously, I think if there's not a lot of death around you, and like you said, you haven't really experienced any like personal death in your life, that probably helps, I guess, maybe keep those feelings away.
And I have my grandfather passed away a couple of years ago, but he was out of state, so that's probably the closest loss I've had. I did have what I called my adopted grandparents maybe about 10 years ago, and we were very close, but for whatever reason, I've just been able to like separate that and be like, I don't know if it's just an understanding of like maybe someone being at peace or what it is, but I've just never, aside from that, and it hasn't been a lot and it's never been like too traumatic of a loss. So maybe that does
Sure.
affect it, like you're saying. So I've had it, but I don't have like a moment. I do remember being at an open casket funeral, but I don't really have a memory of like when I was younger, but I don't really have a memory of like seeing them, which I know sticks with a lot of people when they do.
I 100% I remember going to my great grandma's funeral and it was an open casket and I was probably like 6 or 7 years old. And we ended up living in the house that she died in, which I felt was like a really weird sort of situation.
Sure.
Um, but I remember going, being super young, and almost just like treating it like I just was being dragged somewhere because I didn't have that concept really of death yet.
Yeah.
It was an open casket. I remember seeing her laying up there and it not really clicking, but again, just like one of those things that for some reason just like melted in my brain and I could still picture it right now perfectly. Um, but I also haven't really had a ton of, you know, death in my life specifically. I had, um, I had two different, I wouldn't say super close, but one relatively close friend who passed away in high school on Halloween, which is like kind of creepy. But um, and that was tough. But that stuff again, it never really, it was never really about. I never made it about me. It was always just like feeling the loss of them and whatever. For me, it's just like I'm sitting on the couch and I'm just like, I'm gonna die one day. It's such a fucking bummer. Or, you just think about other people that are my obsession is very much more self-involved, I think, than like
Okay.
dealing with others, which is, I mean, I don't know, I'm sure there's more to that as well. But let's we should focus on you more. It's not, we don't need to get super into what exactly I'm dealing with, but that is super interesting. So, okay, so you grow up and it seemed like you were sort of like a normal kid fascination with like you said, these movies and these books and whatever it was. When did you sort of realize that this was the path that you wanted to go towards, and like how did that start?
Probably about, so I've been doing this for 5 years, maybe like 6 or 7 years ago. I was working retail. I was working at a used bookstore, and I worked with a friend there who left that job to go do removals and pick up people when they passed away. And he had told me a few times, like, you need to come do this. Like, you would love this. This would be perfect for you. And at that time, I had kind of been exploring, I had almost had a bachelor's in creative nonfiction. So I was like, totally nothing near this. But I had been
Yeah,
exploring like trade schools because I was like, if I'm going to finish school, I'm just going to need to do something that I feel like I can use because I was just at that point.
sure.
Kind of at a crossroads. And so he had told me that a few times. And it took me probably about a year before I was like, okay, you know what? I'm ready. I had looked into it and I was like, I think this is something that I could do. And so I ended up quitting my job at the bookstore, and took the job doing removals. And for the first week, I was like, what have I done? Because it's so physically demanding.
Yeah,
And
kind of.
I'm like 5'3", and I mean, at that time I probably weighed less than I do now, but like think like 130 pounds probably.
Sure.
And so it's very physically demanding. Like dead weight is not a joke.
Yes. So if you could kind of talk me through that first week, like, do you remember? And we don't have to get obviously too specific. There's privacy things. I understand, I'm sure, and
Sure.
all that stuff. But just what were you feeling on your way to like that first pickup, and any other sort of just like feelings or just like take me through that day.
I was very nervous because obviously I had no experience whatsoever. And it's such a serious thing. And you go,
Yeah.
sometimes, I think if I remember correctly, they might have started me out doing like morgue calls, like just picking someone up from a morgue in a hospital. And when you do that, it's always through the back of the hospital. It's kind of in the underbelly of the hospital.
Yeah. I'm thinking, I mean,
So
it's the creepiest place.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and there is like a hospital in Scottsdale that has one of those elevators that's like the ones you see in like
What?
New York. Yeah, and that, yeah, I've literally had like anxiety in that elevator thinking like, if this is it for me, like I'm gonna get stuck in here because it's one of those ones where you have to like pull on the thing and yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
Um,
I know exactly what you're saying. I could picture that. Yeah, that's terrifying.
yeah, there's
And
some
then
weird situations.
is there just like a point too where you're just like, it's just you and a dead body in a creepy elevator, and it's just like the two
Yeah.
of you?
Yeah. And then
That
sometimes
is
you're just like, I
wild.
can't believe like this is where I'm at. Like this is what I'm doing. And it's, even though if you've done it for a while, it's still sometimes you just have those moments of like, all right, like this is what I'm doing with my life.
Sure. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But from the start, I think they probably sent me on some more calls, and then they had you really practice because you have to learn how to use a gurney.
Okay.
And that can be tricky. And you do a lot of these things solo. Like normally two people would not go on a work call unless there's
Really?
like a major weight issue,
Yeah.
depending on like how much the person weighs. Most of the time you're on your own though. So I've shadowed someone for a while, and we would practice with the gurneys like when we were on a call. And so they'd even have like, one of your coworkers get on the gurney, you learn to like push weight,
That's kind of
and
fun.
they put you in the van because most of the time there's like an unmarked van. So
Oh,
another
that's
thing
kind of
I think is
creepy too.
interesting is like at any point you could be driving by like a van with a body in it and you probably wouldn't know.
Sure. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm it would be kind of odd if there was just like untinted windows and there's just like a dead guy in the back of it. Or if they
Yeah.
had like some, yeah,
There
it would
are
be strange.
logos and there are companies that have logos, and I'm amazed I don't see them more. Like, having been someone who's been in random neighborhoods, like you
Yeah.
drive by a place and you're like, I've picked someone up there before, or like I've been in the hospital so many times at the morgue. It's
Yeah.
I'm surprised I don't see them more often, but I have randomly a couple of times on the freeway seen, like, there's some companies dedicated just to doing removals.
Yeah.
And so sometimes you can see those if you know
So
what to look for.
yeah, I mean, that's kind of interesting. You're just a very specific type of person who could be on the freeway and be like, "Oh, that van definitely has a dead body in it," or they're
Yeah.
definitely on their way to go pick up a dead person. When as
Yeah.
if I'm on the freeway, I would never even think of something like that.
Right.
Which again is interesting because it's just another aspect of like death, just like being on your mind more than
Yeah.
anybody else.
Yeah.
Do you feel like that has an effect on you at all?
You know, I don't know. I don't feel like it does. If anything, I feel like it's made people in my life more comfortable to talk about it. And I am like, that's one of my favorite things about doing what I do is I'm all about like, let's talk about it. I know that, like, especially in like our society and our culture here, it's really just hush hush. And it's
Sure.
such a big part of other cultures that I love talking about it, and I always want to answer questions about it. And I feel like I probably know what people in my life want when their time comes, or if something ever happened now more than like, why else would I know that? You
So
know?
yeah, I mean, I would assume if you were my friend, I would be constantly bugging you about death questions, death things. And yeah, it would be nice, because it makes most people super uncomfortable. Most people don't want to think about dying. They don't want to think about how they're going to die or dealing with other people dying, especially, family or whatever. But you're saying you're basically like the go-to friend to just like have those death conversations with.
Yeah, definitely. And I love it. I think it's
Yeah.
like you should. And even my own parents have, honestly, it's not something we ever talked about. And now, it's been brought up a few times. And that's like a scary part of it is you start to see, like, you take care of someone, you're
Yeah.
making their arrangements, and you see like they're born in the same year as your mom or dad or a loved one. And
Sure.
that part is a little bit, that's the only time I think I ever feel any toward or kind of anxiety, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
is when I see those dates. And it's not even in regards to myself. Like, I'm like least concerned about myself.
Sure. Yeah. My whole thing is Twitter is the worst because I feel like Twitter is just constantly posting like news stories about whether it's a celebrity or just like an athlete or whoever has died. And my first thing is like, okay, how old are they? I need to know how old that person is.
Right.
And I need to know how they died. Did they just like, was it a fucking brain aneurysm? Because that could happen to me. Did they get hit by a car? Like, did they have, some sort of condition that I don't have? So I don't, it's like this weird relief that you get when you read the story and you're like, oh no, he was riding a scooter near a ledge and he fell. And you're like, thank fucking God,
Yeah,
because
that would never happen to
I will,
me.
I will continue to live in, but yeah, I completely understand that. I've had the conversation. I feel like both of my parents, as they get older, I think just it comes with it. They just are more comfortable with it. They're more open to talk about it. I actually had a conversation with my mom recently, where we discussed because I'm kind of getting into, and I don't know how you feel about this, and if you're into it, I'd love to talk about this as well. But I'm sort of getting into not necessarily like speaking to the dead, but I told my mom, I was like, we need to come up with like a code for when you die to tell me if you're like still around. Like if you're dead and you're just hanging out, then you got to do something. So we've been working on like some sort of signal that she could do to me to like let me know that like there's something that happens after, or if she's like hanging out for a little while or whatever it is. So that was the
It's
the
like a
last.
safe word,
Yeah,
but from the other side.
exactly. That's exactly what it was. I was like, we got to come up like whether it's you make it rain or you knock something over, like whatever it is, it needs to be relatively specific because otherwise I'm just going to be looking around and be like, the refrigerator light went out. That's a sign. That's her. Like it needs to be something specific, but it also kind of comforted me a little bit where it was like, okay, well, this is something that I'll like look for when she dies. And I don't think she's dying anytime soon, but it was like a oddly comforting kind of fun conversation to have. It was like it lightened up the mood of, because it really does. I feel like, at least with my parents lately, they've really just come to like this like comfort. Even with like the pandemic and stuff, my dad was like, "Look, if it gets me, it gets me." And he's an older guy. He's just like, "I've lived my life and whatever." Um,
I love
but
that. I feel like maybe even with the pandemic, maybe it's come up even more for people that way, like to see that much. I mean, everyone was seeing like a lot of death all the time for this past year.
oh my gosh, yeah. I mean, the constant. I mean, there was just like a ticking clock on every news cycle of just like
Yeah.
every time somebody died, the numbers, you just watching these numbers go up. I think for sure, yeah, this past year has been a very big reminder that things could go sideways extremely quickly. And I think a lot of people, probably healthier people, don't really even just, they don't even think about it or assume they're going to die anytime soon. Whereas unfortunately, other people, I think it's constantly like on their mind and whatever
Right.
that is. But okay, the bit of a tangent, but I do want to get back to your first week there. So I love the idea of you in a creepy elevator and there's just like a dead body next to you. Um, and I love the training, and you're just like, it kind of blows my mind a little bit that you're doing this by yourself, because I immediately just picture somebody grabbing the arms and somebody grabbing the legs and just kind of flinging them on a board and and whatever that is. And now I'm picturing you just like shoving somebody. Like, how does that work exactly?
You really you learn how to be like resourceful. Like you
Yeah.
have to, and like how to shift weight. If you're lucky, like so when you get someone from a morgue, the security of the hospital is responsible for that. So there's usually a security guard. I will say most times they do not help. And I don't know if it's a liability thing. I
Yeah.
don't know. You're lucky if someone will help you. And same thing when you're like at a residence, like good luck with the officers helping you with anything. But I've had some
Oh, I
really good
thought you
experiences.
were gonna say like good luck getting their mom or like their family member to help.
No, no way.
Yeah, 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 for sure. That
You
would be
just
a little odd if you're like, "Hey, dad, could you help me push here?"
definitely not.
Yeah,
I encourage people to. I was always very much like, if you want to be in the room, that's your right. You can
yeah,
look. I'm not afraid, of you to see whatever it is. But in that sense, I would walk someone through it, exactly what I'm doing, when I'm going to do it. And at a residence, you usually have someone with you, just because you never know what you're going into. Is it like a hoarder house? Is there a narrow hallway? Is there
yeah,
stairs? So usually you have more than one person, and that's just a safety thing for everybody involved.
sure.
But yeah, the first week was brutal. I had like bruises on my body too, because you learn to like use your weight and how to maneuver things. And being someone who's short, like when I had to put a cot into the van, like where it hit was kind of at my hips. So I
Yeah.
had some like really big bruises, and I was very sore just using muscles that honestly I didn't even really know that I had. And so
It's a
that
yeah,
was really rough.
it's kind of a workout for
Yeah, no,
sure.
definitely a workout. So the first week I was kind of like, oh boy, what have I
Yeah.
done? And it just gets easier. It's like working out, you eventually get used to it once you just do it all the time. But
By the end, you just had him over your shoulder and you're just
yeah,
walking out of there.
yep, exactly.
Is there anything specific that kind of sticks out from your time doing that? Again, we don't have to get like too specific, or if there's things that you don't want to share, but I would assume, like, even you mentioned like hoarders, like you're going into strangers' homes.
Yeah,
That there's like this weird, privacy that you're just or like
yeah,
privacy is not the right word, but you know what I mean. Like you're going into this stranger's home. Going into a stranger's home is already just weird. Like you're just walking into a
yeah,
person you don't know them, and you're just walking into their house. And then on top of that, someone's dead inside, and you're the one that's there to remove them. Is there
yeah.
anything specifically that kind of sticks out or that stuck with
Um,
you during all of that?
yeah, there's several different things. I mean, you really learn how to troubleshoot, because when you go there, you obviously don't know what to expect. And maybe the police officer has already told you like they're in a strange position. Like,
Yeah.
I did a few calls where people were on the toilet, which I know we've all heard, like
Sure.
because of Elvis, and like you hear that sometimes, and it definitely happens. Sometimes people have fallen and they're in the shower, or a big
Yeah.
one is that people get wedged between like the toilet and the like sink counter. Um,
Oh, that is
and
such a
you have to
bummer.
be careful because there's just you always want to do things with like respect and dignity. It's never not that, but
Yeah.
there's also sometimes a mess. Like sometimes it's bloody, sometimes there's like feces or urine.
Sure.
And
And
so
you're not
it's definitely not glam.
responsible. No, no, no. Look, that I get it. I mean, that's look again, that's part of it, especially if
Yeah.
you die on the toilet. I think we're all assuming that's going to be a part of it. You're not responsible for like cleaning any of that stuff up, are you?
No, no, and that part is really it's kind of heartbreaking. That's like a
Yeah.
whole other business. Now you can be kind and kind of if you have things around you, kind of clean up a little bit, which I
Yeah.
know I had done and people that I worked with had done. But as far as like if you go somewhere and there's like a lot of blood, that's it isn't like your responsibility. And I don't know about every company or
Yeah.
but I think that most of the time that's left to either the families to do or to hire a company that takes care of doing things like that, like crime scene cleanup. Or I think some of those companies even do things like cleaning up the back of police cars and things like that. There's
Gotcha.
companies
Sure.
designated to that. So it can be really heartbreaking because you feel
Yeah.
bad. Like you've, you've taken their loved one and then they're gonna go in there and they have to see what's left. And
Sure, sure. So again, go a little bit to the mess of the whole thing. What kind of are you in like a jumpsuit? Are you like wearing jeans and a t-shirt? Like what kind of outfit do you have on? Are you like wearing a mask? How does that work?
so it depends. I was always in like slacks and like closed-toed shoes, which I wore like not like tennis shoes or like shoes you'd see someone wearing in a kitchen or something like that, but I would
Yeah,
just wear like kind of flats, but that could tie or flats with socks or something like that.
gotcha.
And then I had a company shirt on
Oh, okay.
that was long sleeves. So and all black. Um, so that's all I wore. The only time I ever used like protective gear was if we knew it was like really bad. Like
Yeah.
I've gone to a hotel before where there was like infestations of like bed bugs or roaches.
Whew.
Um, and so just for my peace of mind, and like you
Yeah.
should, you carry that kind of stuff with you just in case. A few times I've worn masks for odor,
Yeah.
but for the most part, and I think there's even some places where they're expected to be in what you would wear to meet with a family. So I think there's women that do it in skirts and
No
there's
way.
clothes.
Really?
But I don't know. That wasn't my experience,
Yeah.
but I feel like I have seen that or heard that in like groups online and stuff.
Well, yeah, because I was gonna say you mentioned wearing all black, and I was gonna ask if that was a choice in general. Because it would be kind of interesting to see somebody just kind of show up, in these like bright, fun sort of colors or outfits, and they're there to, scrape somebody off a toilet. I feel like those
Right.
two things kind of contradict each other a little bit. I feel like just the one color, maybe a dark color, it just kind of you don't have to think about it. Again, if I see someone walking in with like a silly, she farted t-shirt on, I'm like, this that would make me uncomfortable. Or who knows, maybe somebody would enjoy it. I don't know. But that the outfit is something I never really thought about until we started talking about it.
Yeah, I would say keep it neutral. And I think
Yeah,
like some places will do like business casual or maybe require like a company shirt. And
gotcha.
I know some of the companies that just do removals, they have like a uniform or at least wear slacks, like even if it's not all black. But I also
Gotcha.
felt like it was a good choice just in case you have to get dirty.
Totally. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So yeah, if it do you have anything and there's some other things I want to get to as well, and I don't want to keep you forever. I got you on a
That's
Sunday
okay.
here. I want you to enjoy your Sunday. But if there is like one specific thing that you remember from all that that sticks out the most, um, like if somebody asked you about it, what would you tell them
About
about picking
doing
people up? Is there like any specific story, like
I
person,
had
situation?
I had like I would say it's a negative experience, but it really showed I'll just explain it and then you can
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
understand. So
Sure.
I went in with someone to a call that was upstairs in an apartment complex, and in the apartment there were also stairs, and this person was um, on the second story inside. So, and was a larger person.
Yeah.
We had finally gotten him onto the cot. And when you're working with a cot, it can be like obviously horizontal the way you would imagine it, but you can also put it up in a dolly position to be able to get around corners and things when it's narrow. And we had this awful situation where we lost control. And so we were already outside of the apartment at this point. We already made it down one flight of stairs. And so we're
Yeah.
outside, and this person had fallen. It probably, definitely on us, and we should have asked for more assistance, and we'd gotten so far. So I think we thought that we could handle it.
Yeah.
And there's nothing that it was awful. I instantly cried. I had fallen down a flight of stairs that were concrete, and the cot landed on top of me,
Wow.
like pinned me
Yeah.
down. And the family was there,
So when you
and
say
they
the
saw
cot fell on you, that means like the person is on top of you.
yes,
Wow.
yes, on top of me. And they're covered, and they
Sure.
actually remained covered the whole time. So I was very lucky that no one had to see anything. And, in a moment like that, you feel like everyone in the world saw that, but
Yeah.
the family had seen it. There was just a couple of people there, but they were so gracious, and they were very concerned about us and like, were we okay?
That's
And
great. Yeah.
it knocked the glasses off of my face.
Oh no.
I instantly burst into tears.
Yeah,
It
of
was kind of
course.
embarrassing because I'm very professional, and I felt awful crying, but it was embarrassing, and
Yeah, I
I
think
felt
that
like
just
it
shows that you
was disappointed.
care, you know? I think and again,
Yeah.
I'm sure that probably showed the family who's obviously dealing with all that as well, that you took it that much more serious. You know, some people would probably I would imagine some people probably get angry when stuff like that
Oh,
happens, you know?
definitely. And I felt very lucky that we had someone there who was just understanding and like, he's gone. Like, our concern is you. But the second that we got up, and I felt an arm, I was down on the ground crying, my glasses were off, and I felt an arm come around me, and I thought that it was my coworker, and it ended up being the family member. And I thought that was a really
Yeah, it's
sweet
very
moment.
sweet. Yeah.
Handed me my glasses, got myself together. We got them in the vehicle. And then, I just wanted to make sure that the person was okay, even though
Yeah.
they're already gone. This is, things can happen. You want to make sure they're going to look okay. You don't know exactly what they're going to do for their services yet. And everything was fine. It all worked out. I got very lucky, but that's just definitely one that sticks out for me because it was
Sure.
the worst moment, but it also made me really grateful to think of, here's this family that's like they've just lost someone. Like, this is an awful experience. Like, they don't want to be here. The the worst thing that I could imagine happening has just happened,
Yeah.
and still they're showing grace and kindness, and that stuck to me almost more than like the person falling and the really bad part that
Sure. Yeah,
happened.
yeah, yeah. No, that yeah, absolutely.
And people can be really awful when they're grieving, but I would say most times I am like very overwhelmed by people's kindness
Yeah,
and their faithfulness.
what an interesting situation to be in. Obviously, it's happened relatively quick. I mean, what is like the time? Usually, the person passes away wherever they are. How quickly do you get to them after? Is it right around right around the 911 call?
It's usually within a couple of hours,
Yeah.
sometimes longer. It depends on the situation. Now, if someone's under hospice care, like where this was an expected death, it's going to happen within a couple hours. If you come home and someone is not sick, but you just find them, then that's got to involve the authorities contacting the medical examiner, and they have to decide whether they want to take the case or not. So
Gotcha.
that in that instance, I think it takes longer. But once
Sure.
it's been okayed and a funeral home has been contacted, then the window of time is usually about a couple hours.
Gotcha. Yeah. So again, I mean, you're really getting there right around the time where it's still just so fresh for that person. So
Yeah.
for you to be a part of that, you're really just entering in a very, you know, traumatizing situation with again complete strangers. Like I would imagine there's so much pressure to that. And then on top of that, you're dealing with the body. I mean, I couldn't imagine doing that. It's what an incredible profession to be doing. I mean, I couldn't even imagine.
Yeah.
So you did that for a while and then you moved towards funeral planning. Is that correct?
Yep, arranging. So moving to the next step after someone's brought into the care of the funeral home would be making arrangements at the funeral home. So that's where I'm at now.
And could you sort of explain like that process? So it's basically what the family coming in and picking out a casket. Like, how does that work?
Mhm. Yes. So they come in, sometimes they've already got things prearranged. And if not, you go through the decision with them on whether they want to do burial or cremation. You go through pricing with them, and then you just walk them through all of their options within the lane that they've chosen if they know, and you go through and plan everything, and you take care of ordering all the things that they need, or booking someone to officiate, or a dove release, or
Oh,
it's where
is that a common thing?
sometimes I would say, I don't see it too often, but like a bagpiper is kind of common sometimes, someone to
Sure,
play the bagpipe.
sure.
But usually it's just typically ordering flowers and booking someone to lead the ceremony.
So if I needed like a good bagpiper, you're the person to call. You've got like a
Yeah,
bagpiping guy.
I've got a few. Yeah.
I love that. That's awesome. Yeah, I mean I feel like that's just another part of like this whole process of being around these people who are clearly going through such an intimate thing and you just being a part of it. Has this process of like helping these people plan these funerals, has it kind of helped you figure out exactly how you would want your funeral to be or how you want to be buried or anything like that? Like,
Yeah, it
do you
has.
have it all planned out already because of just the work that you've been doing?
I don't have like an actual pre-arrangement done.
Yeah,
I do want to get there eventually, but I do know that I want to be cremated. And I think I like that option because you can do so many things with it. Like you can spread me in multiple places, or you can have like a vinyl record made with some of my cremated remains or
sure.
ashes, or you can have
Yeah,
a diamond made with some of them. You can wear it in a necklace, you can put it in an urn on the mantle, you can do all sorts of things, and you can do all of those.
yeah,
But I also do like the really like romantic idea of like having a grave and like a place for someone to visit. But you can also do that.
sure.
You can just put a portion, whether that be in the ground or in a niche in a mausoleum. Um,
Yeah, I was gonna
but
say, can you get cremated and then buried? Like, well,
yeah,
you could do that
yes,
as well, right? Because
yes, you can.
I feel like I'm with you in the sense of I again, it's a weird I feel like death just makes you think of these very odd situations, obviously. Um, but I have had those thoughts of like my funeral and like what I would want to happen and who's showing up. And again, these are like very superficial things I feel like, but one of them was yeah, the idea of like my body just getting and this is strange too, but it's like you've heard stories about people like getting put in a casket and like they're getting buried and they wake back up again. I'm sure obviously that's like very, very small percentage, but I feel like I'd rather just get thrown in the oven and just cooked than possibly wake up in a box. I mean, how terrifying would that be? And
That
I
would,
do right? That would be a nightmare. And then I do like the idea of someone being able to come visit me. I like the idea of someone possibly like, you know, just holding onto my casket and crying and just really being emotional and just, screaming he's just gone too soon or something, to that effect. Um, I think I think it's something again that I don't think a lot of people even consider. I was listening to another podcast about death, and somebody made this point where the comfort is thinking like three steps forward to not necessarily thinking about how you're dying, but like think about the funeral, think about how you want to be, whether you're buried or cremated or whatever. And that does obviously I'm being a little silly about the whole thing, but that does sort of comfort me a little bit more than thinking about the actual like act of dying.
Right.
Um, have you
No, I think
thought about?
it's a good thing to think about, and I think, like, it can almost be fun, like, and don't you want your wishes to be known? Because it's gonna be up to whoever, like, legally is your next of kin to take care of that, but
Sure.
it really helps if you know what you want.
Yeah,
Even if that
absolutely.
really is just an informal conversation or it's written down in, like, a journal and you tell someone, like, "It's in this drawer," or, like, you just
Yeah,
very basic, like, "Do you wanna be buried? Do you wanna be cremated?"
sure.
I'm
I've
still
also.
thinking about, like, what playlist I would want.
Ooh,
That's, like, a
that's
hard one for
oh.
me.
See,
I honestly don't even know.
I've never even thought about that, but that is so important.
There's another thing for you to think about.
Oh my gosh, but that's such a good one. Absolutely. What is the playlist gonna be? That's amazing. Absolutely. I mean, for some reason, I picture my funeral being outside. I don't know why, but I think I feel like outside is like more romantic than like
Sure,
being in like a boring building or something, you know?
sure.
Um, I've also thought about just donating my body. I'm an organ donor, so that's I think a big part of it too. I think that that's sort of important. I would love for somebody to get some use out of something from me. Um, but is that something? I guess you don't really ever deal with like the bodies like once they're coming in, or you're just about planning it, right? Like you don't ever have to like handle the body when
Um,
they get there.
at this point, I don't. I just see them once they've already been prepared for their services. So if they've already been embalmed and they're coming for their services in their casket,
Gotcha.
or you can view someone before they're cremated. So it's not like a formal service, it's like a private viewing. And so I do see, so I still get to see,
Yeah.
which I that's the part I like about this versus where I started, because I feel like I kind of get to see, like, it, like, there's some closure for me there. Like,
Sure.
to whereas before, like, I see this person, like, at their worst, and I still got to see them be prepared in some cases, but
Yeah.
then I didn't get to see, like, necessarily the end result, or, like, know what they did or how their life was celebrated, and now I get to be a part of that, and I like that part much better.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. Um, yeah, I never really thought about it that way either, but yeah, obviously you're seeing like the beginning of the entire process, which is I would assume the most brutal, than rather you seeing them when they've got makeup on and they're like in whatever outfit the family picked out.
Right.
Um, do you know anything about like that process? Like how does that work? Like do they just like the family just like show up with an outfit? Is there like somebody's job is like specifically like putting makeup and like dressing a dead body? Like how does that work?
Yeah, that is someone's job. Usually the person who does the embalming will also do the dressing and the cosmetics, and the family does bring in. A lot of times they bring the clothing to the arrangements, unless they want to go buy something new. They can always bring it by later.
Hmm.
But yeah, usually the person who prepares the body is the one that dresses. Every now and then, like, I have to help with something like that if there's no time before the service, they've brought something in last minute, or you do have instances where there's religious requirements, such as someone who
Sure.
is part of the Mormon church and LDS. They usually dress their loved one themselves. So they'll come bring their temple garments, and they'll have people of the same gender come and dress their loved one. And some people,
Gotcha.
and that's an option for anyone who wants to do that, regardless of religious preference or not. It's something that if you
Okay.
want to, the one
So
to like get your loved one ready, you can do that.
wow.
As
Yeah.
far as like makeup and hair and dressing,
Yeah. Yeah, sure. They're not gonna let you like help cremate the person or anything.
right? You can do what's called a witness cremation, though, where you're there
Really?
right when it starts. Yeah.
That's interesting.
So every now and then I will go to the crematory and meet a family there, and they're just there for the very beginning. They can view their loved one last time there, and then they can help press the button to start the process. So they'll just
Whoa.
see them go in. It's called a retort, what you're actually cremated in. So they'll see them go in there, and then that's it. They don't stay for the whole process or anything, but it is an option, and it's actually very common in a lot of Asian cultures and like Buddhist families.
Wow, yeah, even the idea of, like, letting you push the button is, like, that's kind of that's super intense.
Yeah. I
Wow.
don't know that I could do it, but I think
Yeah,
it's
I don't know.
It's part of a lot of, like I said, a lot of Buddhist families do it, and they'll
Sure.
have like monks come to the crematory. So, but I also think that's just a whole different thing. And it's so, with their beliefs, it's like
Yeah.
they've got a whole nother life coming. So it's, I don't think they think about it the same way you or I would.
No, no, no. I do actually, I do love that. And yeah, I mean, just this entire conversation now has really just kind of opened my eyes and really made me rethink a lot of different things about what it is exactly I want. And that playlist, man, I really, if anything is going to stick with me, it's going to be
I
what
love to
soundtrack
see
is
what
going to,
songs people play at their funerals. And
yeah,
as you would probably expect, usually for younger folks is when you hear like something like you recognize. Otherwise, it's a lot of the same like religious hymns and things like that. But I
sure.
love when people do it different, and I love to see what songs they pick.
Oh,
There's
I
some
mean,
like staple ones like See You Again by like Charlie Puth and Wiz Khalifa is a big one that people play.
really,
Yeah.
really, that kind of
That song that
bums
was
me
for
out.
Paul Walker. It is sad. And it
Yeah,
like, but that's what, to me, that's when the emotion hits for me, is when I hear songs. But that's just because that's a huge part of my life. I'm like
sure.
listening to music 24/7 all day, like every day.
I
So
just, yeah, I love the idea of this artist being like making a song and then somehow figuring out that the reason their song gets played so much is because it's constantly being played at funerals. Like it's a number one hit at the funeral home is a very specific song for sure. Yeah, I really am gonna think long and hard about my death. I feel like that's got to be like a Spotify playlist right now too,
oh,
like
I'm
funeral.
sure.
If it's
I
not,
should
that's you.
browse.
You need to make that. You you need to
I
start the
should.
funeral.
I do have like a playlist that's like, I really love like dark folk music, and like
Yeah,
I call it Southern Gothic. And I know Spotify has a playlist that's titled that, with that type of music, but
yeah.
there's a lot of like murder ballads and things like that. So I've got like some playlists with themes of death, but not necessarily like what I would want played. I've thought a lot about it and I still haven't narrowed it down, but I'm gonna start working on my funeral playlist, I think.
Yeah, I feel like that's like another like avenue of like profession that you could market yourself for too. Like, would you like me to build you a funeral playlist? I mean, I
Wow.
would pay
That's
somebody to do that.
that's good. Yeah.
You could take that's yours. You could have that. I mean,
Yes, I
if
love that.
if the business blows up, like I'll take like an executive producing credit or something, but I want you to have that because I mean, I'm gonna as soon as this is over, I'm opening up my Spotify and I'm working on my funeral playlist. Whether I just build it for the next 30 years or not, we'll see. But I absolutely love that. Ashley, thank you so much for letting me do this. I really do appreciate it. I have such an odd obsession with death that I think hopefully people listening to this are going to appreciate or they're going to relate to or whatever it is. I just want to talk about death more and I want to make it at least maybe a little bit more uncomfortable, maybe just open people's eyes to things that are happening after you die to maybe I don't know what it is, but I really appreciate you letting me bug you on your Sunday for
Yeah, no problem.
an
Thank you
hour.
so much for having me. And I love to talk about it. I'm always happy to answer questions, and you can hit me up anytime.